So welcome back to the course on Articulate Storyline 360. Now if you have been following up, I said that we'll be starting up with a real project. So first foremost, we double click on the storyline icon so as to start the software. Now within the software, this is how it would look if you're using it for the first time. Since I want to start a new project, I go ahead and click on new project. Now once I do that, this is how the interface would look. Now let's understand what we are seeing here. So inside Storyline, what we create are called as story projects. And as I have already said, story project is nothing but a collection of scenes, and those scenes contain certain slides. Now the first thing that you should be doing is naming your story project. So here, like I'm explaining to you articulate concepts, so it would be apt for me to name this story as articulate concepts. So I will write articulate e-module concepts. So this is what my story file would be called as. Now this story file may have different scenes, but for example, say this is containing just one scene with different slides. So this I can double click on the scene and I can name this set concept modules. And then like I can even click on the slide here and just name this. So I can just go back to the story view and I can name this slide 1. Okay, now just double clicking on the slide, it will give me the scene view with the different slides there. I can always switch between the story view and the slide view like this. So it's pretty simple. Now it's pretty important for us to get familiarized with the environment that we see right in front of us. Now, if you have been using say different animation tools, it would be very easy for you to get acquainted with the terms here, but we will be doing it right from scratch. Now, if you are using PowerPoint for matter, you may be knowing that we have the option of inserting certain things. And for example, even different office tools, the naming conventions like, save as, print, other things, they look pretty familiar. So like Storyline gives you that kind of comfy feel where you know that having experience of different office tools like PowerPoint or Excel for that matter gives you a kind of familiar environment to work with. Now, it's very important for us to understand that this is basically our playing ground here. So this slide here is your canvas and you get to play around with it. Now, if you have a canvas like this, what is the first thing that you want to insert? You definitely want to insert text or certain buttons, shape, characters. This all is referred to as objects within Articulate Storyline. And the way you do that is by clicking on insert here and then inserting anything that you see from out here. So say for example, I would be wanting to insert maybe a small rectangular shape out here, and then basically I can go ahead and give the shape a certain fill for that matter. I can give it a fill like this. I can decide that I don't want any boundary. I can give some shadowing to this. So this all is possible, like, it's pretty similar to what you have been doing using different software interfaces. Now that was a shape, but it's very important that we understand that we can insert many other things. For example, I can insert a button for that matter. So this is how a button insertion is done. And then practically the other things remain more or less the same. I can give it a certain color and then I can decide what kind of boundary I want, I don't want. I can decide to give it certain reflections in case I want. So this is how it would be inserting, say, a certain button. It's not just that we can insert like buttons and shapes, we can insert photos, characters, you have a different library of images, and the character set is pretty interesting. So you get this certain free characters out here. Well, in case you have the licensed version, you can use different other characters as well. It's pretty wonderful to use these characters because they kind of make your presentation pretty lively. So once you insert a character, you basically select one and then click on insert. And here you go. So this is basically a character object that's getting inserted. Now, please look very carefully at the bottom part here, and you will see that there is certain time which represents as 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second. Now, it's pretty important to understand what this means. This means that this object here, Lily, would be appearing on the slide for 5 seconds. Likewise, this button out here, and when I click on the button on the timeline here, you can see the button gets highlighted. Now I can name this button object from the timeline here. Similarly, I can name the lily object from the timeline here, and also I can name the rectangle object. So I can just write red rectangle. So it's important to have a good naming convention, and it really helps you kind of relate to your objects in a better way. Now, if you see at the right side, we have something called as triggers and then something called as slide layers. They are more or less the life of Articulate because they really allow you to have a lot of interaction. So let me try and explain this with a small example, although we will be delving into great depth in the upcoming sessions. I just want to create a new slide, for example. I go here and I click on new slide, and you can see we have a new slide, and I can just click on this. I can name it slide 2. That's as easy as it gets. Now here, for example, I want to have a button which if the user clicks, he or she is directed to the second slide. So how do I insert a button and then attach a trigger to it? Well, simply I click on insert, I put in a button, I give it a certain name. So I just click on it and I click next, I type next on it, and I want to attach a trigger to this. Now the way you attach a trigger to an object is by first clicking on the object somewhere on the boundary so that the whole thing gets like highlighted like it does right now. Then under the trigger section, click on the first thing out here which says create a new trigger. Just click on this. Now it brings up a pop-up which appears something like this, which now it says what is the action that needs to be taken. So you want the action to be that of going to the next slide when the user clicks on that button. And you can see it's actually doing everything for you. It's writing button 1. Please note that this is the object name and presently the object name is button 1. Now I can pretty well just make this object name as next, and I can go ahead and again like highlight the object that I want to attach the trigger to, click on this, and you can see when the user clicks next, I want to jump to the next slide. Now that's okay. Well, I have done this. Now let me know, let us check whether this works. So how do we go ahead and do that? For this, we simply need to preview this. So we go ahead and click on preview. Now do you want to preview only this slide or the whole scene? The scene, like I said, constitutes of all the slides. So we want to preview the whole slide, whole scene, sorry, and not just the slide. So we do that and we get to see something inside what we call as the storyline player. Now here, if you see, we see the storyline player with the story titled Articulate eModule Concepts because we saved it. And this is the slide 1 and then the slide 2 which we accordingly named. Now when you click on next, it takes me to the next slide. Obviously we didn't have anything on the next slide, so it's a blank slide. Otherwise I would be using the player next icon which is anyways attached to the next slide. So that happens by default, but when we do this using a button trigger, this is how it would work. Well, I just wanted to kind of go through this in a quick rapid way to just show you the environment out here. We still have to cover the concept of slide layers and many other things, but hopefully this kind of helps you appreciate how simple it is to quickly get a story file up and running. Thank you.